At what point did it hit you? Like truly hit you? I'm not just saying, you thought about it, but truly hit you that you're going to die one day, that we're all going to die one day.
I've always been very conscious of death. You know, my mother's family is Chinese. The Chinese venerate their ancestors. You go very frequently to their grave sites. You wash the grave. You always remember it. So we have a family plot in a cemetery in Australia, and that's where every member of my family is buried. And at the end of the day, that's probably where I will be buried. Um, and life is finite. Life is limited, but that doesn't mean. Many take that to mean, oh, I should live indulgently. I should live in the moment. But because I know my life is finite, I want to be able to live forever. And the only proven way of living forever is to leave an intellectual legacy to the future.
Yeah, that's a good point. I feel like it's really hit me recently. Listen, I'm 28 years old, but I think as you go through your 20s, there's almost this feeling of invincibility. I'll never get sick. I'm never gonna die. I can take on the world. I can do anything I want. And then for some people, it hits them later on in life. For me, it certainly hit me earlier, where it's like, oh, this is all going to zero. Like one day, I just won't be here. So I more so think of that, and I love your point about legacy. Um, I guess I mostly think about it on a day to day basis, like in regards to some of my fears, especially when it comes to judgment of other people. It's like, why do I care what that person thinks of me? Like they're gonna be dead one day, I'll be dead one day, and then nobody's gonna remember like any of that, or the fact that they were judging me, or the fact that they thought,
Well, yeah, and so that is a very nihilistic way to think
right,
about the world.
right,
But um, great rivalries, great jealousies have been documented throughout history. Think about Caesar and Pompey, Pompey and Cleopatra, right? Over 2,000 years ago, but still written about and read about and analyzed in the annals of history. So, do you want to uh, have a jealousy so small that it gets ignored to history, or to have a rivalry so great that it will be chronicled and remembered forever?
I think I'm prepared to answer that question, but it's a good one. I mean, you're right, and in my opinion, that there's also a balance there, right? Like to your point, you don't want to be too much of a nihilist, because then nothing matters, and then, right? It's like, so what? Like, what do you truly care about? But you also don't want to think too much about maybe some of the consequences of your actions when it comes to what is someone going to think of me and stuff. So I guess that's been mostly my point, especially as someone. And again, I've opened up on this podcast about it. Like I used to think, I used to think all the time, like, well, what does this person think? Like, oh, did I do something wrong there? Or now, very clearly beyond that. But just thinking about death in a funny way actually has helped me kind of conquer that feeling of, and especially the feeling of failure too. It's like, what are you afraid of? That you're gonna fail, and then what? Right? Like,
Well, so I don't often think about how other people view me. It doesn't bother me that
mm-hmm.
that I have very harsh critics. And there are some very powerful people who very much dislike me and everything that I stand for. But what I ask myself is, how do my actions today not influence the opinions of others, but how are the actions that I am taking um, advancing the mission and the goal that I have put myself on? And very few people have a clearly articulated goal for their life that materially contributes to the human condition. And I find that when I meet those people who have very strong goal orientation, we are never at odds. It's always complementary.
What's your advice for someone? I have a specific person that I'm talking to if you're listening to this podcast, but for someone who's still searching for that goal, that life mission? What's step one?
Well, step one is to understand your values. And if you don't understand your values, the very first question that I would pose to you is, do you want to lead an extraordinary life or do you want to lead an ordinary life? And if you want to lead an ordinary life, you can do what ordinary people do and you will get what ordinary people get. That's probably not a very good outcome in these days. And if you want to lead an extraordinary life, it will require extraordinary sacrifice, and you may have the opportunity to have extraordinary outcomes. And for most people, they want the extraordinary outcomes. They want the mansions, the penthouses, the private jets, but they don't want to make the extraordinary sacrifices.
Trying to think how I want to phrase this question. For those who do want an extraordinary life, and let's say I came to you and I said, Aron, I'm ready. I'm ready to do whatever it takes. I want to be extraordinary. I want to live this extraordinary life. Here's my life's mission. Here's my goal. I want to do X, Y, and Z. What would your answer be to the following question? What is the price of living an extraordinary life that most people do not realize? Or I guess put in more simple terms, what is the price of success?
The price of success is only known to a few. And therefore, the challenges and the sacrifices that one has to make are only appreciable to those who have also made those tremendous sacrifices. And the decision to make if you wish to have an extraordinary life, you can't make that decision at 40. You probably can't even make that decision at 30. If you truly want to have a historic, meaningful life that fundamentally elevates the human species, you probably have to make that decision to be extraordinary as a teenager. It starts very, very early because the compound effects are so great. Like I graduated from high school, 16, went on to university, graduated 2 years later from my undergraduate, right? Had a PhD. I think that's my time was 21, 22. And these things compound, right? By the time I was finishing my PhD, like my friends from high school were barely finishing their undergraduate degrees. And so ultimately, there's this deep compound effect. Yes, if you make the decision to have an extraordinary life at 40 and change your life path, maybe you can marginally improve your life condition. But truly to be someone historic, you have to make that decision super early.
What's the role of luck in all of this? And maybe a good question to ask here, which I've asked on the podcast many times, and I'm always interested to hear what my guest response is. But if you were to simulate the world 1,000 times, and how many of those simulations do you more or less end up where you are today? And I think it kind of, it tries, I guess, to put a value on the importance of luck, maybe a bit. So I'm interested to hear what your answer is.
I don't tend to believe in luck very much. I've been blessed by extraordinary circumstances. A lot of journalists would say, oh, well, Aron, you were just so lucky. You were 24 years old and Peter Thiel, one of the richest men in the world, you just meet him at Oxford University and he offered you a job that day, right? And then my retort to that is, well, it's pretty hard to get into Oxford. And Peter met hundreds of people that day on campus, but we struck up a unique and special bond very quickly that led to him giving me a job on the spot. Right? There was basically no luck. There was a lot of strategy involved in that and preparation.